Have you ever felt drawn to someone who completely upended your carefully laid plans? Someone who challenged everything you thought you knew about yourself, about boundaries, about family. I never imagined that a simple ride request would shatter every certainty I had about familial lines. But it happened, and it changed absolutely everything. My name is Ryan, I'm 32 years old. I work as a graphic designer in Chicago. I've been married to Nathan for 5 years. Our life a study in predictability. Comfortable. Safe. Until that Saturday afternoon, when everything began to unravel in the most unexpected way imaginable. The phone rang. It was Michael, my father-in-law. He never called me directly. He always went through Nathan first. But this time his voice was different, tired, vulnerable. "Ryan, sorry to bother you. Can you pick me up from the airport? My car broke down and, well, Nathan is working and I don't want to disturb him." Of course I said yes. He was my father-in-law, my husband's father. A basic family obligation, right? Just another routine 40-minute drive. How could I have known those 40 minutes would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself? When I arrived at the airport, I barely recognized him. Marcelo was 58, but that day he seemed to bear the weight of a lifetime. His divorce, finalized just 3 months earlier, had been a brutal 6-month legal battle that had dismantled 30 years of marriage. I knew it was devastating for him, but I'd never seen such raw vulnerability in his eyes before. He got in the car with a small suitcase and a forced smile. "Thanks for coming, Raphael. Really." And it was at that moment, when he closed the door and the woody scent of his cologne filled the car's space, that something changed. Something I didn't want to admit, but that was already starting to grow in my chest like a silent wave. The first 15 minutes were mechanical. Polite conversation, traffic, weather. Those things we talk about when we don't want to really talk. But then he sighed. A deep sigh, tired, completely honest. "You know, Raphael, there's a loneliness that hurts more than being alone. It's that loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling like no one really sees you." I looked at him, and for the first time I really looked, not as a father-in-law, not as Lucas's dad, but as a man. Vulnerable, real, handsome in a way I hadn't allowed myself to notice before. "Do you feel that way?" I asked, and my voice came out lower than I expected. He smiled sideways, a sad smile but genuine. "Every day. I think I got married so young that I never learned to be myself alone. And now I'm having to relearn everything. Who I am, what I want, what I feel." The way he said "what I feel" hung in the air. It had weight. It had meaning. Or was I imagining it? I looked away to the road, heart racing, hands gripping the steering wheel. What was happening to me? I loved Lucas. We were happy. I had never looked at another man that way since we started dating, and much less at his father. But there I was, feeling the heat of his body next to mine, noticing every detail. The way his fingers drummed on his knee, the strong line of his jaw, the hoarse voice, tired, but at the same time deep, comforting. Have you ever felt that, Raphael? That feeling of living the life you should be living, but still feeling like something's missing? I almost stopped the car, because yes, 1,000 times yes. I felt that almost every day. I'd wake up next to Lucas, go to work, come home, we'd watch Netflix, we'd sleep, and in the middle of all that, there was a small but persistent emptiness that I never knew how to fill. "I do," I admitted, and for the first time in years, I spoke the truth about it out loud. He looked at me, really looked at me, and in that look there was understanding, empathy, connection, something that went far beyond father-in-law and son-in-law, something that was dangerous, exciting, forbidden. His hand brushed mine by accident when he went to grab the water bottle from the cup holder. A half-second touch. Nothing. Insignificant. But my entire body reacted as if I had received an electric shock. "Sorry," he said, and his voice was different. Lower. More intense. "It's okay," I replied, but my voice trembled. And then came the silence. That kind of heavy, loaded silence where you can hear the sound of your own heart, where every breath seems too loud, where you know something has changed, but no one has the courage to say it out loud. I felt the tension in the air. I could almost touch it. Was he feeling it too? Or was I projecting my own confused feelings onto a completely innocent situation? We arrived at his apartment 20 minutes later. 20 minutes that seemed eternal, and at the same time passed too quickly. I parked, he grabbed his suitcase, opened the door, and then stopped. "Raphael, thank you. Not just for the ride, but for listening. It's been a while since I've really talked to someone like this." He smiled, and that smile did something strange to my stomach. Something warm, wrong, irresistible. "Whenever you need," I said, and immediately regretted it. What was I doing? He waved and entered the building. I stayed there, alone in the car, hands still trembling on the steering wheel. What had just happened? And why did I feel this way? Guilty, confused, excited, wrong, alive. I drove home on autopilot. Lucas was in the living room, working on his laptop. So was it easy picking up my dad? It was, I lied. Or was it a lie? Technically, it had been uneventful. Just a ride. A conversation. Nothing happened, or did it? But then why couldn't I stop thinking about the way Marcelo had looked at me? His voice, the accidental touch, the loneliness he had shared with me as if it were a precious secret. That night, lying next to Lucas, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself the question I was afraid to answer. Was what I was feeling real, or just a passing fantasy? And if it was real, what did that say about me? About my marriage? About everything I thought I knew about family and boundaries and right and wrong? 3 days later, my phone buzzed. A message. From him. Raphael, sorry to bother you again. I need to go somewhere tomorrow and my car's still at the shop. Can you help me out? I'll pay for gas and take you to lunch after. My heart raced. I should say no. Should make up an excuse. Should put distance between us before what was growing became too big to ignore. But I didn't. I typed, sure, what time? And hit send before reason could stop me. Because the uncomfortable truth was that I wanted to see him again. Wanted to feel that connection again. Wanted to find out if he felt the same way I did. Or if it was all just in my head. I knew I was playing with fire. Knew this could destroy my marriage, my family, everything. But for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. And that was more terrifying than any consequence I could imagine. The next morning, as I got ready to pick him up, I looked at my reflection in the mirror and whispered the question that would change everything. What if he feels the same? Every rational part of me was screaming to turn around and go home. But there I was, standing in front of his building, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I took a deep breath and pressed the intercom. Hi. His voice was low, warm, and I already felt that shiver run down my spine. Hi, I replied, trying to sound casual. I'm here. The gate opened with a click, and I walked in, climbing the steps slowly, as if each step were a conscious choice to continue down this path of no return. When the apartment door opened, there he was, without the formality of family gatherings, without the mask of distant father-in-law. Just him, hair slightly messy, simple shirt, tired but soft gaze. Come in, he said, stepping aside to give me space. The apartment was small but cozy. Smell of fresh coffee in the air. Books piled on the coffee table. A life I had never seen before. His life, real and raw. Thanks for coming, he said, closing the door behind me. I wasn't sure if you would come. I wasn't sure either, I confessed. And the honesty of that moment cut through the air like a knife. He smiled, a sad smile full of understanding. Sit down, please. I sat on the couch and he sat next to me. Not too close, but close enough for me to feel his warmth. Close enough to notice every detail. The lines around his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly. I know this is strange, he began, looking at his own hands. And I know you must be wondering what you're doing here. I'm wondering a lot of things, I admitted. But the main one is, why me? He took a deep breath, as if preparing to dive into deep waters. Because you understand me, he said, looking into my eyes. Because when you look at me, I don't feel invisible. You see me, really. And it's been so long since anyone saw me like that. His words washed over me like a wave. Because I knew exactly what he meant. I also felt invisible. Also felt trapped in a role that wasn't mine. I feel the same way, I confessed. And the vulnerability in my voice scared me. It's like I have to be someone I'm not, all the time. He reached out, hesitant, and touched my hand. Just that, fingers meeting. But it was like an electric shock. I'm not saying you feel this too, he said quietly. But if you do, I just want you to know there's nothing wrong with it, and that I understand. I wanted to say I didn't feel anything, that this was crazy, that he was my husband's father, for God's sake. But the words wouldn't come out, because it would be a lie. I do feel it, I whispered, barely believing I was saying it out loud. The silence that followed was heavy, loaded with meaning. He didn't let go of my hand. I didn't pull mine away. Can I kiss you? He asked with a gentleness that completely disarmed me. I should have said no, should have run out of there, but instead I said yes. And it was like that, unhurried. A calm kiss, full of truth. It wasn't just desire, it was recognition. It was relief. It was the feeling of finally being in a place where I could be myself. When we pulled apart, tears were streaming down my face. Tears of confusion, of fear, but also of something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. I don't want to hurt you, he said, wiping my tears with his thumb. I know, I replied, but this already hurts, doesn't it? Because we know we shouldn't be here. He nodded sadly. And what do we do? Before I could answer, his phone rang on the table. The name on the screen made my blood run cold. My husband, his own son. He looked at the phone, then at me, and let it ring until it went to voicemail. They can't know, I said, panic starting to rise. Imagine if they find out. Imagine what this would do to him, to the whole family. I know, he said, taking my hand again. But my whole life I've hidden who I was, pretended to be what others expected of me. And now, for the first time, I've found something real. Someone who makes me feel alive again. But what about your son? I asked, guilt weighing on my chest. And my marriage? He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. Do you love him? The question hit me like a punch, because the answer was more complicated than I wished it to be. It was so wrong, but it also felt so right. You don't have to decide anything now, he said, touching my face. Just don't lie to yourself. I nodded, unable to speak, because he was right. I'd been lying to myself for a long time, pretending I was happy, that I was complete, that nothing was missing. I stayed there with him until nightfall. We talked about everything, about life, about fear, about what we really wanted. And the more I got to know him, the harder it became to imagine going back to my old life. When I finally said goodbye, he hugged me at the door. We can't keep going like this, I said, my voice choked. Hiding, lying. Sooner or later, someone will notice. I know, he agreed. So we have to decide. Do we hide forever, or do we live for real? The question hung in the air, unanswered. I went home that night in a state of shock. My husband sat watching TV, barely registering that I'd arrived late. How was your day? He asked, distracted. Normal, I lied, and the word got stuck in my throat. In the following days, I tried to keep my distance, tried to pretend nothing had happened. But his messages kept coming, kind, understanding words. He never pressured. He was just there. And then, a week later, what I feared most happened. We were at a family lunch. He and I were careful not to get too close, not to exchange looks, but I could feel it. Every time he passed near me, every time our hands accidentally brushed reaching for a plate, my sister-in-law, always observant, pulled me aside in the kitchen. Are you okay? She asked, looking at me with an intensity that scared me. Why? I tried to sound casual. I don't know, you seem different, distracted. And I noticed you and your father-in-law are acting a bit strange. My heart stopped. Strange how? I can't quite put my finger on it, she said, frowning. Just a strange feeling. You two avoid each other, but there's definitely something unspoken between you. You're imagining things, I said, forcing a laugh, but my voice trembled. She looked at me for another second, then shrugged. If you say so. When I returned to the living room, he was looking at me. Our eyes met for a second and I saw fear. The same fear I felt. After lunch, he sent me a message. We need to talk. Now. We met at a cafe far from home. He was tense, different. She noticed, I said as soon as I sat down. My sister-in-law, she saw something. I know, he said, running his hand through his hair. And it won't stop there. Sooner or later, everyone will notice. We're not good at hiding. So what do we do? I asked, desperate. He was silent for a long moment. Then, with a conviction that surprised me, he said, We'll face this. So we'll handle it together, he said. At least we'll finally be living our truth. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say it was too risky. But looking into his eyes, I saw a courage I'd never seen before. And something inside me lit up. When? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tomorrow, he said. There's that family dinner scheduled. We'll tell everyone at once. Fear paralyzed me. But there was also something else. A strange sense of freedom. Okay, I said, almost not believing my own words. We'll tell them. That night, lying in bed next to my husband, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I'd have to look him in the eyes and tell him about his father and me. I didn't know how he'd react. I didn't know if the family would forgive us. I didn't know if we'd survive the storm that was coming. But one thing I knew. I couldn't live lying anymore. Couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when inside I was falling apart. Tomorrow, I would face my husband. Tomorrow, I would tell the truth. And whatever happened, I knew I couldn't live a lie anymore. I woke up that Saturday with my stomach in knots. It was the day of the barbecue at my father-in-law's house. My ex-husband would be there. Our children. The whole family. And today, he and I had decided we wouldn't hide anymore. I looked at my phone. Message from him. I'm ready, are you? My fingers trembled as I typed, I'm terrified, but I know I can't keep living a lie. Then let's go together. Whatever happens. Whatever happens. Those words echoed in my head as I got ready. Part of me wanted to run away, cancel, make up any excuse. But the other part, the one that had kissed that man in his car weeks ago, the one that had felt something real for the first time in years, that part knew there was no turning back. I arrived at his house at noon. He opened the door with that calm smile that always disarms me. Hi, kiddo. His voice was low, comforting. Everything will be okay. Or it won't. But we'll be together, right? I could only nod. We got into his car. That same car where everything had changed. He gently placed his hand over mine. Breathe. Just breathe. The drive to my ex-father-in-law's house was silent. My mind wouldn't stop racing. How would my ex-husband react? Would the kids hate me? Would his family see me as an opportunist? Someone who was destroying everything? But when I looked at the man beside me, driving with that serenity that only those who've lived a lot have, something in me settled. He had more to lose than I did. It was his son, the grandfather of my children, and even so he was there, steady. We arrived. The backyard was already full. Music, laughter, the smell of meat on the grill. Everything seemed so normal, so familiar. But I knew that in a few minutes, nothing would be the same. We got out of the car together. Some people already looked. Curious glances, nothing more for now. My ex-husband was near the grill, talking with his brother. When he saw me, he waved, smiled. My heart tightened. He had no idea what was about to happen. The afternoon was strange. I tried to act normal, talk to everyone, play with the kids, but every look I exchanged with him, every time our fingers accidentally brushed, was like a countdown. Until, around 4 in the afternoon, he stood up and tapped a spoon against his glass. The sound cut through the conversations. Everyone looked. Everyone. I need to say something. His voice was steady, but I could see the emotion behind it. There's something I need to share with you all. Something important. The silence was immediate. My ex-husband frowned, confused. The kids stopped running. Everyone was looking at him, and at me, because he had stretched his hand in my direction. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I went to him. I took his hand. I know this will be difficult to understand, he continued, looking at his son, my ex-husband. But I met this man a few months ago, in a way I never expected, and I realized something I've spent my entire life hiding. Who I really am. Silence, absolute. He and we're together, and I don't want to hide it anymore. The impact was visible. My ex-husband went white. His eyes went from me to his father, as if trying to process something impossible. One of my sisters-in-law covered her mouth with her hand. Some cousins exchanged uncomfortable glances. The children, my God, the children. My 10-year-old daughter asked, "Daddy, what is Grandpa talking about?" I couldn't answer. My ex-husband couldn't either. It was he, his father, who spoke first. Love has no age, my dear. And sometimes it shows up where we least expect it. My ex-husband finally reacted. "Dad, is this serious? With him? With my ex-husband?" His voice was trembling, mixing shock, anger, confusion. "It's serious, son. And you. Did you plan this? When I was still married to him?" His voice rose. "This is betrayal, Dad." "No!" My voice came out louder than I intended. It wasn't betrayal. When he and I connected, you and I had already been separated for almost 2 years. I never cheated on you. My ex-husband looked at me with a hurt that pained me more than I expected. But he's my father, man. Don't you see how wrong this is? And there, in that moment, I realized he wasn't angry about betrayal. He was angry because it was strange, because it was taboo, because it didn't fit what he thought it should be. His father took a step forward. "Son, I understand this is difficult for you. And I'm sorry if this hurts you, but I spent 63 years of my life pretending, being who others expected me to be. I got married, had children, did everything right. And you know what that brought me? A marriage that ended, a loneliness that almost destroyed me, and the feeling that I wasted my entire life." His voice failed, but he continued. "When I truly met this man, not as a son-in-law, but as a person, I felt something I thought I'd never feel again. Hope. I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not going to apologize for finally allowing myself to be happy." Silence again. But this time it was different. Some people had tears in their eyes. My mother-in-law, his ex-wife, was standing near the table, and to my surprise, she didn't look furious. She looked sad, but not with anger. With compassion, she approached. Everyone looked at her. "I always knew," she said quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Deep down, I always knew there was something in you that you couldn't give me, and I spent years thinking it was my fault, that I wasn't enough." She wiped a tear. "But now I understand. It wasn't about me. It was about you not allowing yourself to be who you are." She looked at me. "And if you make him happy, then maybe all of this was worth it." My ex-husband looked at me. "Mom, are you serious? You're okay with this?" "No, son. I'm not okay. This still hurts. It still makes me question everything. But your father deserves to be happy, and you also deserve to learn that love doesn't fit in boxes." It was his younger sister who spoke next. "Uncle, I fully support you. I think it's incredible that you have this courage." And slowly, little by little, other voices began to join in. Not all. Some were still visibly uncomfortable, but enough for me to feel that we weren't completely alone. My ex-husband was still processing. He looked at me. "I don't know if I can accept this right now, but I don't want to lose my father, and I don't want the kids to grow up thinking that love is something to be ashamed of." He took a deep breath. I just need time. And you know what? It was enough. Because he didn't reject me outright. Instead, he said, I need time. And time is something we can give. 3 months later, things still weren't perfect. My ex-husband was still adjusting. Some family members cut contact with him, with us, but others drew closer. They formed bonds we'd never had before. The kids, they took it better than I expected. My daughter, with that brutal honesty only children have, asked once, Dad, is Grandpa your boyfriend? Yes, sweetheart. But he's old. I laughed. Yes, he is. But love has no age. She thought for a second. Like Grandma and her yoga instructor? Okay, that one caught me off guard. But she was right. Love is love. Simple as that. And you know that day, that ride request that changed everything? I finally understood why. It wasn't because it was forbidden. It wasn't because it was scandalous. It was because it was real. For the first time in my life, I was loving someone without fear, without pretense, without hiding who I was. There were nights when I woke up wondering if I'd done the right thing. There were moments when guilt still hit. But when I looked at the man sleeping beside me, with that messy gray hair, and felt his hand searching for mine even in his sleep, I knew the answer. If you're going through something similar, if you're feeling something that everyone says is wrong, but deep down you know is true, let me tell you something. You're not alone. Love doesn't ask permission. It doesn't care about social norms. And sometimes, it appears in the most unexpected places, like the car of a 63-year-old man you once thought was just your father-in-law. Sometimes life puts you at a crossroads, and you can choose the safe path, the one everyone approves of. Or you can choose the true path, the one that makes you feel alive. I chose truth, and I don't regret it. If this story touched you in some way, if you've ever felt this kind of confusion, this love that defies everything, share here in the comments. This is a safe space. A space where you can be who you are, without judgment. And if you want more stories like this, real narratives from real people who had the courage to live their truth, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Because here on Lips and Secrets, we don't hide who we are. We celebrate it. That ride request changed everything. Not because it was forbidden, but because it was real. And in the end, that's all that matters.